Sergeant Danielle Price walked through the crowded terminal of LAX, her posture rigid with military precision, but her eyes scanning every movement, every shadow. At 37, she was a seasoned Army veteran, recently back from active duty overseas. Her auburn hair was tied back in a neat bun, her uniform crisp despite the long flight. By her side padded Odin, her black Labrador service dog, wearing his bright red vest that read PTSD service dog, do not pet. The world buzzed around her. Loudspeaker announcements, rolling suitcases, laughter, crying children, but Danielle heard it all through a filter of static. Since returning stateside, the war hadn't left her. It had simply changed form. Now it lived inside her, manifesting in sleepless nights, sudden panic, and an unshakable feeling that something could go wrong at any second. She clutched her military-issued duffel tighter, eyes darting to the nearby escalators. The airport was her test, her battleground. Crowded, loud, unpredictable. Odin glanced up at her, sensing the rise in her pulse, and gently brushed his body against her leg. It was their signal, his way of grounding her. She exhaled slowly. Her mission was simple: get home to Colorado Springs. After 18 months deployed, her mother had convinced her to come back for her niece's graduation. She wasn't great at family gatherings anymore. She couldn't do small talk, but she had promised. At the security checkpoint, the TSA agent gave her a skeptical once-over. "Ma'am, dogs need to be in carriers unless they're." "He's a service dog," Danielle said calmly, already pulling out the laminated medical documents. The agent frowned, looking from the papers to Odin. "Is he trained for travel situations?" "Yes. He's trained for everything." After some hesitation, the agent waved her through. As she placed her boots in the tray and stood for the body scanner, Odin sat obediently, eyes locked on her. A child nearby pointed at him, whispering to their mother. Danielle couldn't hear the words, but she could feel the curiosity. On the other side of the checkpoint, Danielle relaced her boots with muscle memory precision. Her duffel over her shoulder, Odin once again at her heel, they continued toward the gate. Gate B17. Delayed. She sighed. She took a seat near the windows, Odin curled at her feet. She tried not to think about the cramped airplane cabin ahead, or the strangers she'd be stuck beside. Instead, she focused on Odin's rhythmic breathing. Inhale. Exhale. Match him. He was calm. She could be too. A commotion near the gate jolted her upright. A middle-aged man was raising his voice at the airline staff. Something about his seat being downgraded. Danielle's muscles tensed. Her fingers curled into fists. Odin's head lifted. He nuzzled her hand gently. A reminder. You're here, not there. She blinked rapidly and looked away. Disengage. Disassociate. Survive. The flight finally began boarding, and Danielle moved with the second group. The flight attendant glanced at Odin with a furrowed brow. He's traveling in cabin? Danielle nodded. Service dog. Fully certified. They found their seats, 27A window. Odin curled into the space at her feet, trained not to move unless absolutely necessary. Danielle buckled her seatbelt and braced herself. Halfway through the flight, turbulence hit. Not terrible, but enough to make the overhead bins rattle. Danielle's hand instinctively gripped the armrest. Her chest tightened. The roar of the engine seemed louder, darker, too familiar. Odin lifted his head, rested his chin on her knee, and pressed into her leg. His warmth was a lifeline. The passenger beside her, a young woman with earbuds, glanced over. Is he okay? Danielle gave a small smile. He's keeping me okay. The woman nodded and said nothing more. Danielle appreciated that. After landing, baggage claim was chaos. Danielle pushed through, feeling like she was walking underwater. As they reached the exit, she heard someone shout. Hey, you! Help! Somebody stop him. A man burst through the sliding doors, shoving past people with a duffel bag clutched tightly in his grip. A store alarm blared behind him. A security guard chased after him, wheezing. The thief collided with a woman holding a baby, knocking her to the floor. The baby screamed. Instinct overtook Danielle. Without thinking, she shouted, Odin, guard! Odin lunged forward, barking once, loud, commanding. The thief froze mid-step as Odin placed himself between the woman and the man, teeth bared but unmoving. Danielle stepped in, voice calm but firm. Drop the bag. Now! The man hesitated, but Odin growled again, low and deep. The thief dropped the bag and ran. Security finally caught up, panting, and grabbed him at the curb. The woman cradled her child, shaking. Thank you. Thank you so much. Danielle nodded. Her hands were trembling now. The adrenaline was fading. Odin sat by her side, tail thumping lightly, waiting for praise. "Good boy," she whispered. By the time she got home that night, she was exhausted. Her mother hugged her tightly at the door. Her niece ran up, clinging to her waist. She tried to smile. She really did. In the following days, local news caught wind of the airport incident. A clip of Odin standing guard in front of the woman and child went viral. Veterans groups began sharing the video. Then PTSD advocacy organizations. Then national media. Danielle received calls from people she hadn't heard from in years. Strangers reached out, thanking her for what she did. Not just at the airport, but for her service. For showing what strength really looked like. She didn't want the spotlight, but she saw what it meant. That her story, Odin's story, could help others understand. A few weeks later, she was invited to speak at a mental health awareness panel in D.C. The idea terrified her more than any battlefield. But Odin would be there. That made it manageable. She stood on stage, microphone in hand, staring at the crowd. "I don't like talking about my story," she began. "But I do it because I know some of you need to hear it. PTSD doesn't wear a uniform. You can't see it, but it's real. And it's hard. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do is just keep going." She paused, placing a hand on Odin's head. "This guy right here? He saved me. More times than I can count. And if my story helps even one other person get the support they need, then it's worth it." The crowd stood in applause. Danielle looked down at Odin, who looked up at her with quiet loyalty. She exhaled. Maybe she wasn't just surviving anymore. Maybe, finally, she was healing.